Howdy everyone, my name is John Michael Bushman and welcome here to T'under Junction, where everybody here is legendary and good god, this should just be called Commander Legends Adventures in the Wild Wild West. And no, I will not be doing that accent for the entirety of this video because that is rough on my throat. I could have gone for the southern bayou accent where nobody could understand a word I was saying, but here we are with Outlaws of T'under Junction, a set that a lot of people are excited for on a more competitive level because a lot of the cards here are really good. Unlike in Mark of Mana, where a lot of stuff is just honestly they're all sleepers, but they do see some play here and there. But T'under Junction may just change that. So. We do have only 96 cards to go through. I believe the preview season is done. Because as of the recording of this video, pre-release is going to happen on Friday, and I forgot to put it on full screen. There we go. Now it's full screen, and yeah. So pre-release is on Friday, and people are getting ready, looking over the set, trying to figure out what the archetypes are and whatnot. But I'm just here to go over all of the comments and see which will break Pauper and which will be very powerful in it. So. Starting here with the white cards, we have Armored Armadillo, a 1-drop 0/4 with Ward 1, which is already really damn good. And then it has a Mana Sync ability where it gets +X+O until end of turn, where X is its toughness. Now, I may be the only person who is absolutely hyped for this card because a 1-mana 0/4 stonewalls a lot of ground-based offense in this format, but unfortunately, a lot of the really good finishers in Pauper are all flyers. So he may be good against stuff like mono red, and the Ward 1 really helps. Basically, you have to bolt it like 2, maybe 3 times in order to kill it, and the flavor text is amazing as well. But keep an eye out for it. But it may end up not seeing play after all. Next, we have Bridled Bighorn, a 4-mana 3/4 with Vigilance, and when it attacks while saddled, you create a 1/1 sheep token. So Saddle is a new mechanic. It's just slightly better crew. And then it has a bonus effect whenever it is saddled. So there's that. Saddle is just crew, but for creatures, not artifacts. There's also that. But for Bridled Bighorn, you need saddle 2, so you need a total power of 2 or more in order to properly saddle this thing. But a 4-mana 3/4 that creates a 1/1, so it's 4 mana 4/5 across 2 bodies. Probably not. It does have Vigilance, so it's a really good blocker. So if it's anything to go by, but otherwise probably not. Ariat's Lullaby is along the same boat, unfortunately. It's a 2-mana sorcery, destroy target tap creature, you gain 2 life. I mean, the flavor text is utterly horrifying knowing what Ariat is, but, me and a bunch of other people want to be stepped on by her, but that's a completely different story. This is definitely limited, more for limited rather than actual Pauper, because removal like this for white usually just ends up going nowhere. But the next card is the one that a lot of people are excited for, and it's Holy Cow! I don't know if my mic peaked at that, but because I forgot to bring my earphones, so let's just see if Holy Cow is gonna change the format. And apparently it already will, because at the mana cost and the power and toughness, it basically power creeps the Inspiring Overseer from Yucapena. Add to the fact that it has flash, and then it doesn't draw a card, but it does scry one, which is honestly a lot better than drawing one card, because it fixes your draws. And Holy Cow is definitely going to go into a lot of white-based decks moving forward. Up next, we have Inventive Wingsmith, a 3-mana 2/4 at the beginning of your end step if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, and Inventive Wingsmith doesn't have a flying counter on it, you put a flying counter on it. So in order for him to gain flying, you shouldn't cast a spell from your hand, which is sort of pseudo support for another mechanic that comes from this set. And yeah, here it is on Stagecoach Security. which is plot, which is just slightly which is better foretell, because with foretell you have to pay the cost again, but with plot you just pay the foretell cost and then you cast it later for free. So there's that. But for Inventive Wingsmith to fully maximize his capabilities, you mustn't cast a spell from your hand. You must either foretell it, or you cast it from your graveyard, or you cast it from your library somehow. Panglacial Worm is laughing somewhere, trying to give this guy flying. Otherwise, probably for limited, but for Pauper, highly likely no. Up next, we have Mystical Tether, a 3-mana enchantment. You may cast it as though it had flash if you pay 2 more to cast it. So for 5 mana, what does it do? It exiles target artifact or creature an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. So this might just be the closest thing to Leyline Binding that Pauper is going to have, but it's probably even worse because it's at 5 mana, whereas Leyline Binding, you only more often than not, people only pay 1, maybe even 2 mana for Leyline Binding. But it does exile artifacts and creatures, which is one of the more plentiful card types in Pauper. But Oblivion Ring doesn't exactly see widespread play, and other similar effects, at least none that I know of. And I honestly don't think Mystical Tether is going to do the job, unfortunately. Up next, we have Outlaw Medic with lifelink, and when it dies, just draw a card. I mean, what are you gonna do? Walk 100 miles for a second opinion? I mean, it blocks well, and then if it dies, it draws a card. I mean, I'm reminded of a follower in Shadowverse, the Bellringer Angels, and if they die, they draw a card, and they block well as well, which is utterly convenient. And this guy also has lifelink, so I mean, why not for limited? But for Pauper, probably not, unfortunately. Moving on, we have Stagecoach Security, a 5-mana 4/5. This guy better be good. If it enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn, and then you can plot it for 4 mana. So if you plot it for 4, then you must be winning at the next turn, because granting your whole board +1/+1 and vigilance is a huge swing in tempo. But for Pauper, probably not, because by the time you are at this mana value for the decks that can use it, your opponent's probably already like crawling on the ground trying to recover. So skip on that one as well. Next, we have Steer Clear, a 1-mana instant. It deals 2 damage. The obligatory combat trick in white. So, Steer Clear, there's 4 damage to that creature instead if you control a mount as you cast this spell. So, if you have any of the mounts, they are like labeled as such anyway, like let's say here, the trained Arynx. If it has a if it has mount labeled on it, it will deal 4 damage instead rather than the 2. Otherwise, you're better off just saving this for red spells. Red spells do that job way better than white ever will, unfortunately. Next, we have Sterling Keykeeper, a 2-mana 2/2. So we have a Grizzly Bear here, and what does it do? It just taps a non-mount creature. If you don't want to tell me where your stash is, you best start getting comfy in there. Just let me know when you've changed your mind. Yes. Good old sheriff, keeping them vagrants and them vagabonds behind bars because they be disturbing the peace and whatnot. Otherwise, she's unfortunately not that good a card for Pauper, because tapping it, taking it out of combat only temporarily rather than permanently removing it, unfortunately no. Just no. Next, we have Sterling Supplier, carrying what I assume is a weapon from the Halo franchise, but that is a story for another time. A 5-mana 3/4 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature you control. Definitely good for limited, just to give you that extra bit of reach that you otherwise will not have. And it also flies, so it's potentially really good there. But otherwise, just skip on this one. Up next, we have Take Up the Shield, an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. The Frontier was an anvil on which many an unlikely hero will be forged. So there's another one for those Feder decks. Feder decks never ever stop getting support. Let me tell you that much. Take Up the Shield is just an upgrade over, I believe, one of the previous instant speed buff effects that they have plenty of in that deck already, because this not only gives a counter, it also gives lifelink and indestructible. So if you have Zada in that feather deck, which you probably highly likely should, take up the shield should definitely be in there. Just put it in there. Don't think about it. Lifelink and indestructible is amazing, and you would not have it any other way. Let's move along. We have Trained Arynx, a 2-mana 3/1. So if it attacks while saddled, it gains first strike until end of turn. Scry 1. So I mean, first strike for a 3/1, yeah, sure, it's a really good attacker, but you have to saddle it for 2. And then you scry 1 as well, and then he has to attack. Maybe it's very aggressively statted, I'll tell you that much, but probably will not see play in Pauper, unfortunately. In Limited, it will probably be a moderately high pick, in my opinion. I may be completely wrong about it, but in Pauper, probably not. I mean, 1 toughness dies to a lot of like really cheap removal in Pauper, and there are a lot of like deal 1 damage to a large glut of creatures in this format. Up next, we have Vengeful Townsfolk, a 3-mana 3/3, so an on-curve threat. Whenever one or more creatures you control die, put a +1/+1 counter on Vengeful Townsfolk. I mean, it gets bigger the more your creatures die, so if you have this in a deck that cares about your creatures dying, this will get really, really big, but unfortunately, Vengeful Townsfolk doesn't have any protection whatsoever, so probably not. Let's read the flavor text. The Sterling Company says they protect us, but where are they when the Hell Spurs burn half the town, counting their vaults? Hell yeah! We're gonna move along. We have Wanted Griffin, a 4-mana 3/2 with flying. When it dies, you create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So there's a minor sub-theme within Outlaws of T'under Junction, where a lot of creatures trigger their effects if they're targeted by an ability. I believe it's a red legend. It's a Boros. If not mono red, it's Boros. Legendary creature somewhere in the set, where she cares about targeting stuff with abilities, and this is highly likely support for that draft archetype. But for this card on its own, unfortunately, a 4-mana 3/2 with flying, you could do so much more at a better rate, unfortunately. So let's just move along to Gath'ring Thunder Thief. Now we're on to the blue cards. A 4-mana 4/4 with flash, and it enters the battlefield tapped. Why would you even do that? You can do so much more with 4 mana. Although now that I'm looking at the card more, it's a turtle. It's a turtle rogue. Of course, it will enter tapped. But for Pauper, unfortunately, no. Let's move on to the next one. Up next, we have Djinn of Fool's Fall, a 5-mana 4/3. You'd better be doing something good. It flies, and you can plot it. That's all there is to it. No one knew if the waterfall was a natural wonder the Djinn guarded, or if he'd conjured it to hide something even greater. Unfortunately, the card isn't that good. Next, we have Failed Fording, a 2-mana instant. Return non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If you control the desert, surveil 1. I mean, it's a removal spell for blue. It's useful for blue in Limited, but in Pauper, they're like, I think unsummon is entirely legal in Pauper. I don't know if Stern Dismissal is also available in said format. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to look it up. Basically, there are far better bounce spells, unfortunately, in Pauper, and you need to control the desert in order to unlock its additional upsides. So, unfortunately, pass on this one. Up next, we have Geyser Drake, a 3-mana 2/3 with flying. As long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Why would you even do this? I don't know why, but if you can give this to your opponent, then you can screw over a lot of blue-loving players out there. Up next, we have Harrier Strix, a 1-mana 1/1 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, you tap target permanent. And then it has a mana sink where you draw a card and you discard a card. This just might see play in Blue X decks in Pauper. Might. I'm telling you guys, it might, but it might not after all. Because, I mean, it's a 1-mana 1/1 and then it removes a blocker. So, for Limited, it's definitely really, really good. But for Pauper, I don't know. It could see play. I could see it seeing play somewhere, but it will probably be passed over because in Pauper, there are just a lot of better cards out there, unfortunately. Up next, we have Jailbreak Scheme. So this introduces another new mechanic in the game, which is Spree, which is basically kicker plus one, as I like to call it. So the spree is you pay one or more additional costs. So for Jailbreak Scheme, for three additional generic mana on top of the blue, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It can't be blocked this turn, or rather, target artifact or creature's owner puts it on top or bottom of their library. So either 3 mana, you Fate Seal something, or you put it at the bottom. Or for 4 mana, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Or for a grand total of 6, you remove an opponent's blocker, and then you make a creature of yours even bigger. Unfortunately, a little too expensive, and it's a sorcery speed, so probably not. Up next, we have an actual, factual, literal loan shark for 4 mana, and it's a 3/4. And if it enters the battlefield, if you've cast 2 or more spells this turn, you draw a card. I mean, this is a plot payoff if I ever saw one, and I'm just realizing this is an old ass loan shark. Like, given how his gills and teeth look, I'm assuming this is an old guy. I think that's what they were going for with the art, but otherwise, in the Pauper format, probably not. Next, we have Peerless Rope Master, a 5 mana 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target tapped creature to its owner's hand. So this is a post-combat thing. You can. I'm just realizing it doesn't necessarily mean your opponent's creatures. It can also be your own creatures. So you can save your own creatures from removal this way, and murder someone, and you'll have a gaggle of folks line up for revenge. Humiliate them, and they won't dare bother you again. Oh man, such good art, but unfortunately the card is not that good. Up next, we have Phantom Interference, a 1 mana instant with Spree. So for 3 additional generic mana, you create a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying, or for just 1 generic, counter target spell as controller pays 2. I mean, the upside is there. I mean, it's just it's just loose focus. So, and loose focus is a widely played counter spell in the Pauper format, and with the upside of turning it into a spirit when you don't need a counter spell is great. But in Pauper, probably not. I mean, I can always be proven wrong, but 2 mana counter spells that well, it's not exactly a counter spell, but a soft counter for 2 mana. Competition's a little fierce right now, and having an additional option on top of that will probably push it a little, but ultimately it will highly likely not succeed. Next, we have Razzle Dazzler. Missed opportunity there to call it Razzle Dazzle, but here we are. A 2 mana 1/2. When you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Razzle Dazzler. It can't be blocked this turn. I might be underestimating this thing because that's honestly a really good effect, but it only counts the second spell, and he does get bigger, but only on the second spell. So, and he doesn't have protection, so maybe. But now you see him, and now you don't. So there's that. Up next, we have Seize the Secrets, a 3 mana sorcery, and then it costs 1 less to cast if you committed a crime this turn. So what does committing a crime do? Unfortunately, stealing your opponent's deck is an actual, factual, real-life crime, and we're only talking about crimes in the context of the game. And what counts as a crime? Targeting stuff your opponent has. So targeting anything they control, targeting the opponent themselves, or cards in their graveyard. So that's considered a crime. So basically, targeting your opponent with anything and anything and anyone on your opponent's side of the field, that's considered a crime. But I'm surprised that attacking your opponent is not considered a crime. So theft is not okay, but assault and battery is. So that's the message that WotC wants to get across here. And it's just slightly better divination. So 2 mana to draw 2. I mean, there are other cards that do the same that nearly do the same thing and require slightly less and require a lot less work. So I mean, there will be people who will try to make this work because 2 mana to draw 2 is amazing, an amazing rate, and all you need to do is just target something target your opponent with something. So it may or may not see play, but that depends on what shakes out when this set finally does release. Up next, we have Slick Shot Vault Buster, a 3-mana 1/4 with Vigilance. It gets +2/+0 as long as you have committed a crime this turn. So it becomes a 3/4, but you need to have committed a crime. So probably not, unfortunately. I mean, she is a good blocker, but probably not. Next, we have Spring Splasher, the Hash Slinging Slasher, the Spring Smasher, the Sprick Smasher, the Spick Spasher. But I'm not gonna keep doing that joke. Otherwise, no, skip on this one. Up next, we have an enchantment. We have an aura called Stop Cold for 4 mana. The obligatory. It's the obligatory. Blue enchantment that taps a creature down and it doesn't tap during its control's untap step. Although this one's really good for the reason that it loses all abilities. But at 4 mana, I mean, Fall from Favor was banned for a reason, and it was at 3 mana. So adding one more and then making it be able to target artifacts and or creatures. 4 mana is a bit much, unfortunately, so it may see some play in some jank decks somewhere. In EDH, I can definitely see it seeing play somewhere for the budget-minded, but otherwise, for the Pauper format, probably not. Up next, we have Take the Fall, which is an instant. This is a combat trick, and it gets even better if you control an outlaw. So what are outlaws? Those are assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. So basically, all of the job classes that potentially have sugar daddies, and then it even draws you a card. So, I mean, 1 mana draw ones are sort of commonplace in the Pauper format. So this may see play somewhere. Blanking an attack is also pretty huge, but probably not in the grander scheme of things. Let's move on to the next one. We have Ambush Gigapede. A 6 mana 6/2, you'd better be doing something good. And it has Flash. When it enters the battlefield, target creature and opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Okay, so it's not going to do too much, unfortunately. Let's just move on to the next one. We have Black Snag Buzzard, a 3 mana 2/1 with flying. And then it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if a creature died this turn. So it becomes a 3/2, but the creature must have died. And then you can plot it for 2 mana. Okay, that makes it really good. You can cast it later if no creatures have died or you're having difficulty, just killing your own creatures. So the Buzzard might see play somewhere in an Orzhov shell somewhere, but probably ultimately no. So let's move on to the next one. We have Boneyard Desecrator, a 4 mana 3/4 with Menace. Sacrifice another creature. Goes alongside with the Buzzard there. Then you put a +1/+1 counter on Boneyard Desecrator. If an outlaw was sacrificed this way, you create a treasure token. 4 mana for a non-free sacrifice outlet is a bit much. So this will probably see play in budget EDH decks, but in Pauper, there are definitely better sack outlets out there. I mean, Carrion Feeder is legal in the format, and that one is for free. So there's that. Up next, we have Consuming Ashes, a 4 mana instant that exiles a target creature. If it had a mana value of 3 or less, Surveil 2. So, slightly overcosted, unfortunately, at 4 mana. If this were 3, it would honestly probably be way too good. Will probably not see play because mono black control already has enough removal as is, and there are like far more efficient spells out there, unfortunately. Next, we have Corrupted Conviction, which I believe is a reprint, because I think this was in the Phyrexian Invasion storyline, where it was Ajani on the art, and now it's here being reprinted. So it's another one of those 1 mana sacrifice a creature, draw 2 cards. I mean, stuff like this is already seeing widespread play in a lot of Black X Pauper decks, so why not have it be reprinted? Just keep the price down, keep it cheap, and I mean, why wouldn't you? Next, we have Desert's Dew, and it's an instant. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, and then it gets an additional -1/-1 for each desert you control. So there is a desert Deserts are a heavily supported sub theme here in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I mean, makes sense because it's the wild, wild west out here. But it's I mean Deadweight already sees some fringe play in decks that can support it and make an instant speed with the additional upside of -1/-1 just for having deserts. Why not, right? I mean, why not? -2/-2 is already pretty goddamn big, and having more on top of it. I mean, yeah, why not? Up next, we have Desperate Bloodseeker, a 2-mana 2/2 with lifelink, and when there's the battlefield, target player mills 2 cards. I mean, Myre Triton already sees a lot of play in Pauper, and having lifelink on top of it will probably be replacing Myre Triton. All things considered, this is a really damn good card for Pauper. I mean, yeah, if Myre Triton gets replaced, it would be because of this guy, a vampire of all things. Up next, we have Fake Your Own Death. Oh no! Tiny Bones! Ah! Faking their death. Ah! Oh no, Tiny Bones is dead. Ah! Oh no. Ah! Yeah. It has, I mean, it's right there in the effect. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control, and you create a treasure token. So it's another one of those kinds of effects here in the Pauper format. Hell, even in Magic in general. WotC just keeps adding stuff like this these days. I don't know why. But using Tiny Bones to do that, and then the flavor text, oh, he's done bothering us, trust me. No. Tiny Bones is an annoying little piece of shit that you will love for all eternity, and you will overthrow a small to medium-sized nation for this little guy, okay? That's just the nature of Tiny Bones, okay? Let's move on to the next one. We have Mourner Surprise! A return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Create a 1/1 mercenary. Activate on this. I mean, Regrowth is a spell in green, and it gets any card, and then Mourner Surprise gets creatures. Then you create a mercenary on top of it. Y'all should have known better than to buy me a coffin. Oh god, he didn't die. He probably should have died, but he didn't die. But the Hellspurs, damn, they're one hell of a gang, aren't they? But let's move on to the next one. We have Nezumi Linkbreaker. A 1-mana 1/1. When it dies, you create a mercenary. I mean, a little boring, but 1-mana 1/1 with nothing else going for it. It has to die even. Probably not. Move on to the next one. We have Overzealous Muscle, a 5-mana 5/4. Whenever you commit a crime during your turn, he becomes indestructible until end of turn. Not everyone can be a pickpocket. Why would you have an ogre be a pickpocket in the first place? Move on to the next one. We have Raven of Fell Omens, a 2-mana 1/2 that flies. Whenever you commit a crime, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. But WotC just had to cut all the fun out of us by having this ability only trigger once each turn. So that already makes this amazing card really, really bad, unfortunately. Move on to the next one. We have Rooftop Assassin, a vampire assassin, 4-mana 2/2 with flash, flying, and lifelink. Jesus fucking Christ, are you really going to power creep Vampire Nighthawk that bad? Let's see first. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. So in Rakdos decks, this is an amazing, amazing card. But at 4 mana, it's probably a little too much. Maybe in Pauper, who knows? But we're gonna see. Next, we have Skullduggery. Until end of turn, a 1-man instant where until end of turn, target creature you control gets +1/+1, and target creature and opponent control gets -1/-1. Why, you yellow-bellied loot stealing, good for nothing, bottom feeding, dog face lily livered. Keep piling up the insults, okay? Keep piling all those insults up. Hell yeah. I mean, it makes your attacks more unstoppable, I guess. So I can see it seeing play somewhere, but probably not. Let's move on to the next one. We have Vault Plunderer, a 3-mana 3/1. When it enters the battlefield, target player draws cards and loses 1 life. Effects like this in Pauper are very rarely seen, unfortunately, because there are so many other ways to do this and at a more efficient capacity, unfortunately. And at a 3/1, yes, it's aggressively statted, but probably not see play. Up next, we have Dead-Eye Duelist, a 2-mana 1/3 with reach. Why does she have reach? Who the fuck knows? Slickshots are always eager to demonstrate their skills to whomever questions them. But for one, tap it, it deals 1 damage to target opponent. So if your opponent's at 1 life and then this has been on the battlefield, just 1 mana, deal 1 to them. So why not? And still, I am wondering why is this going to win the award of surprise reach in this set? Like, why? Why does this random cowgirl rather, why does she have reach while others don't? The ogre just before her, it doesn't have reach. I'm assuming there's a really large being and then it doesn't have reach. I don't know why. Up next, we have Discerning Peddler, a 2-mana 2/2, another grizzly bear. When it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card, and if you do, draw a card. So it filters, which honestly makes it really good, and it's like, the curve is fine, and maybe not. Who knows? We're gonna see how this shakes out in the Pauper format. Up next, we have Explosive Derailment. Bombs and trains and sabotage! Oh, wait, no, that's Breaches, so I should sound more like a goblin. Bombs and trains and sabotage! Yeah! There we go. I think that was good. I don't know if I peaked my microphone there. So for 1 mana instant with Spree, for 2 generic, you deal 4 damage to target creature, or for another 2 generic, or rather, for 2 more generic, you destroy target artifact. So you either kill a creature or destroy target artifact. It's stuff like this that makes me excited at what other designs WotC has cooking up in their R&D department, because this is just they could have just printed this as 2 separate cards and nobody would have batted an eye, but no, turning it into Spree, turning it into a modal spell saves up a lot of space. Allowing them to do stuff like this. So I mean, it's fine, but 3 mana to destroy target artifact, Gorilla Shaman is in the format, and that guy's seeing a lot of play, so it has tough competition. But who knows if Explosive Derailment will even see play somewhere. Up next, we have Highway Robbery. You may discard a land. You may discard a card or sacrifice a land. If you do, you draw 2 cards. Wow, this is an amazing rate. Excuse me. Sacrificing a land is a bit much in the Pauper format, but in EDH, this will probably see play in my Windgrace deck. I just have to find the room for it because I love sacrificing my own lands in that deck, and then you can even plot it if you don't need it at that exact moment. So it may see play. This card may see play somewhere in Pauper, but probably only somewhere on the fringes. Up next, we have what the fuck is that word? Irascible? I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Irascible. Irascible Wolverine. It probably means like angry or, rage-filled or somewhere along those lines. Or, it could just be an Elseworld version of X-Men's Wolverine, but who the fuck knows? 3 mana 3/2, what does it do? When it enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library until end of turn, you may play that card. Hey, card advantage. So, oh my god. Excuse me while I yawn. Holy crap. Oh, it's really hot right now. But, Impulse Draw on a 3 mana 3/2. I mean, the stats are good. The curve, it's on curve, so you could do something with this, but will probably only see play in like fringe decks, unfortunately. Next, we have Iron Fist Pulverizer, a 5 mana 4/5 with reach. This one I can understand having reach because he's a giant. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, it deals 2 damage to target opponent. Scry 1. I mean, yeah, that's a damn good card, but a little overcosted. Will probably not see play in Pauper, unfortunately. Next, we have Mind Raider, a 3 mana 3/2 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another outlaw, you create a treasure token. So, yeah, 3 mana 3/2 again, same. It's nearly identical to this guy. It's nearly identical to the Wolverine. It's on curve. The stats are good, but this one, you need to have another outlaw in order to create a treasure token, but otherwise, it's just a 3 mana 3/2 with trample. So it might as well be a vanilla, but otherwise, highly likely no. Up next, we have Outlaws Fury, so the Hellspurs are going at it. A 3 mana instant where creatures you control get +2/+0 until end of turn, and if you control an outlaw, exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. So it's card advantage that also gives your whole team a +2/+0, which is honestly really big. But there are there are more efficient ways to go about this. Unfortunately, 3 mana is just a bit much for the decks that can use it. But who knows? I may be proven wrong. Temporary card advantage is still card advantage. So we're gonna see where this card goes from here. Up next, we have Prickly Pear. Haha, yeah, nice pun there, Watsy. A 3 mana 2/2. When enters the battlefield, you create a mercenary. Okay. So it's 3 mana 3/3 across 2 bodies. Well, technically 3 bodies, because it's just 3/1/1s in a trench coat. So for limited, probably yes, but for Pauper, highly likely no. Up next, we have Quick Draw, a 1 mana instant where target creature you control gets +1/+1 against first strike until end of turn. Creatures target opponent controls lose first strike and double strike until end of turn. I mean, yeah, that's a combat trick if I ever saw one. Feather decks again. You're never starved for attention now, aren't you? Oh my god. Yeah, every set you just have to look at the limited environment, and then feather players are just salivating all over the place. Oh my god. They just replace the less efficient cards that they used to have, and then they just replace it with the newer ones. Like, oh my god. But we're gonna move along. Quick Draw will highly likely see play only in limited, unfortunately. Next, we have Quilled Charger, a 4 mana 4/3. When it attacks while saddled, it gets +1/+2 and gains Menace. I don't know why you would want to mount a Porcupine, but here we are. They'll definitely hurt somewhere, just not in your. Actually, no, it will definitely hurt in your nether regions if you don't sit on the Porcupine right. But that is a logistical problem that I will answer another time. Up next, we have Reckless Lackey, a 1 mana 1/2 with first strike and haste. So we have Zoro here. Or rather a Zoro wannabe with 3 swords, 2 swords, 1 in each hand and then 1 in the mouth. And then if he has served his purpose, you can just sacrifice him to draw a card and create a charge token. So a lot of people are already saying this is the replacement for Monastery Swift Spear, on top of the monkey goblin that we got out of Ixalan. So we have eight goblin pirates now, and that is an amazing thing to see. This guy will definitely see play in mono red decks everywhere. You'd better have your removal ready for this little guy. Up next, we have Rodeo Pyromancers, a 4 mana 3/4. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, you add 2 red. So casting your first spell each turn, and then these 2 girls will give you 2 red mana. So they basically only cost 2. Then for a 3/4. So they refund half the mana you pay into it, but unfortunately, probably not in Pauper. But what does the flavor text say? My citizens throw good mana at them, and for what? Cheap tricks and collateral damage. Damnable select shot charlatans. That's Baron Bertram Greywater. Let's move on to the next one. We have Thunder Salvo, 2 mana instant. It deals X damage to target creature, where X is 2 plus the number of spells you've cast this turn. So this is a storm payoff. What the actual fuck? But it only deals the damage to the creatures. So, whoo boy, we're safe there. Probably not in Pauper, but who knows where this will see play. Up next, we have Trick Shot, a 5 mana instant where it deals 6 damage to target creature and 2 damage to up to 1 other target creature token. Why did it specifically have to say token? Who the fuck knows? But I do not think this will see play anywhere. A bit much at 5 mana, unfortunately. Up next, we have Ankle Biter, a 1 mana 1/1 with Death Touch. I mean, this is extremely difficult to block in combat. And little tip, newcomer, give your boots a shake in the morning before you put them on, because you could have a snake in your boot. Wait, there's a snake in your boot. There's a snake in my boot. Yes, they did the thing. They had to have made that. They have to have made this card with that reference in mind. Oh my god. Let's move on to the next one. Ankle Biter will see play somewhere, but I don't know where. But Bristlepack Sentry will highly likely not see play anywhere, unfortunately. Same with Cactarantula. That's a pun and a half. Costing only 1 stochastic if control desert. Obligatory spider in the set, and it's actually really goddamn huge given the size of the humans in the art. But probably no. Next, we have Dance of the Tumbleweeds, which is a really weird classical piece from the 1800s. For 2 mana and sorcery with Spree, so either you search your library for a basic land card or a desert card, put it on the battlefield, and then shuffle. So you do that for 3 mana. Or you for 3 mana, so for 4. No, 3 plus 1 is 4. So for 5, you create an XX green elemental creature token where X is the number of lands you control. Probably. I mean, the choice is there, but probably no, unfortunately. Up next, we have Drover Grizzly, a 3 mana 4/2. When it attacks while saddled, creatures you control will gain trample until end of turn. That is amazing, but I mean, this is actually probably the one thing that the elf decks have been looking for, rather than having a mana sink in that one creature that they have, just sinking all of the mana into it and then giving it trample. This guy just needs to be saddled and then it gives your whole board trample. What more could you fucking want? So having this guy is a one-off, and it's on color as well. So what more could you want? Just having your guys have trample just to get by all of the blockers. So, yeah, this might see play as a one of in elf decks, simply because it just needs to be saddled, and it's this. I will not be surprised if that happens. Next, we have Free Strider Commando. This is a card that a lot of people are excited for. 3 mana 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield rather with 2+1/+1 counters on it if it wasn't cast or no mana was spent to cast it. So you basically have to plot this guy in order to turn him into a 5/5. So you're basically paying 4 mana to turn him into a 5/5. I mean, it's good rate. It's honestly a really good rate. But I do not actually know where it will see play. I mean, will it see play alongside the Avenging Hunter in the Golgari Gardens deck? Who knows? Maybe it might spawn another deck on its own, but we're gonna find out soon enough. Up next, we have Giant Beaver, a 4 mana 4/4 with Vigilance. If it attacks while saddled, you put a +1/+1 counter. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that saddled it this turn. So, and you need to saddle 3. Oh boy, that makes this guy really goddamn huge, but probably not, unfortunately. Next, we have Hard Bristle Bandit, a 2 mana 1/1 mana dork. Hey, whenever you commit a crime, you untap it. Unfortunately, WotC again cuts off all the fun by having this ability only trigger once each turn. So, sorry there, but I mean, 2 mana, making it tap for 2 mana is a good ass rate, but probably not. Up next, we have Patient Naturalist, a 3 mana 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. Put a land card from among the mill cards into your hand. If you can't, create a treasure token. So, I mean, I think this is a if you didn't mill a land card, you make a treasure token instead. So, yeah, I mean, it's something, and we actually have representation for the Native Americans in this set. I believe that's at least that's what I think this is alluding to, because if you're gonna read the flavor text, the Atin delight in delving into the unique wonders of each world they visit. So this could be the representation of Native Americans, but I could be completely wrong, so don't take my word for it. Up next, we have Reach for the Sky, a 4 mana flash aura that has enchants a creature and gives it +3/+2 and it has reach. And then when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card. So it's a surprise. It's a surprise block, and it makes you say Reach for the Sky, but a bit much at 4 mana, unfortunately. Snakeskin Veil getting a reprint. We all know how goddamn good this card is. So, yeah, I mean, no ifs or buts here. Snakeskin Veil is a damn good card. Next, we have Spinewood's Paladin, a 5 mana 5/4. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. I mean, yeah, heavy ramp decks are a thing in Pauper, and anything to fight against mono red will always be a welcome sight. So, this might see play somewhere, but I just don't know exactly where. Same with Snakeskin Veil. We're just gonna wait and see here. Up next, we have Throw from the Saddle, a 2 mana sorcery. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 until end turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on it instead if it's a mount, and then it's the obligatory fight spell. So, I mean, probably not, unfortunately. And it's a sorcery speed too. It could have been a lot better if it were if it were an instant speed instead, unfortunately. But a little kindness would have carried you a lot farther than those spurs, said by Miriam. Then next we have Tumbleweed Rising, a sorcery for 2 mana where you create an XX green elemental creature token where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So probably will not see play anywhere, unfortunately. You already need to have a board presence in order for it to do really good. But it's just a giant freaking tornado full of things that form into a shape of an elephant. So probably will not see play anywhere. Up next, we have Voracious Varmint, a 2 mana 2/2 with Vigilance. You sacrifice it. So this is just a power crept thrashing Brontodon. It's cheaper to cast because it's a 2 freaking mana and it can even block. Like how dare Watsy power creep thrashing Brontodon? That's my boy right there. Then you replace it with this varmint right here. Jesus Christ, a varmint's diet consists of anything it can fit into its mouth and a surprising number of things it can't. No, why did you power creep thrashing Brontodon? I'm just going to move on to the next one. Good card, yes, but I'm sad that thrashing Brontodon has been power crept out of the format. Up next, we have Gold Pan, a 2 mana artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, create a treasure token, and then target equip creature get +1/+1. So, I mean, if it's just a way to create a treasure token, so it's basically a 1 mana artifact. So, if you have ways to get it into and out of the graveyard, I mean, yeah, it's something. Up next, we have Oasis Gardener, a 3 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life. And then it's a mana dork for 3 mana. I mean, it's something, but who knows where it will see play, unfortunately. Up next, we have Silver Deputy, a 2 mana 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land or desert card, reveal it, shuffle it, and then you put it on top of the library. No, just no. Just no. And last creature in the deck, we have Sterling Hound, a 3 mana 3/2. Where it enters the battlefield, you Surveil 2. I mean, Scooby-Doo is in the set, so there's that. And beware of Cog. Yes, just beware of Cog. Okay? Now, the last cards in this set, 10 deserts, all of which representing each of the Ravnican guilds. And then there are 2 special lands here. First, we have Conduit Pylons, where if it enters the battlefield, Surveil 1. So, already, really goddamn good for budget decks that want effects like this. And then it also filters mana even, so even more amazing. Then Mirage Mesa, similar to the Thriving Lands way back when, but rather than being dual colored, there's only one color, unfortunately. So yeah, those are all of the cons. In Outlaws of T'under Junction, yeehaw, hi diddly ho neighbor, howdy partner, you know, all the other things that you say in the Wild Wild West. But definitely the biggest thing that people are excited for in the set is holy cow! You have to shout holy cow every time, okay? You have to shout holy cow every goddamn time. But other than that, yeah, this is going to be an exciting set for Pauper. We'll see what new brews come out of this set. Or, you know, if the old guard gets even more upgrades and sticks their place in the meta even longer. So if you guys like what you saw, hit like, comment, subscribe, and share this among your friends. And until next time, toodles.